Welcome to The Bottom Line with John Harrison, your tour guide through all things financial. Build out your financial skill set with crucial knowledge and tactics and easy-to-follow answers to all your essential money questions. And now, your host, certified financial planner, ordained minister, multi-published author, and president of Aspire Financial Advisors, John Harrison.
Hello, and welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm John F. Harrison, your host, and in this episode, I just want to share a little couple of headlines from the news, some current events, things that may affect your financial life, and in particular in this episode, I want to look at what's going on in the commercial real estate market. We've talked about different aspects of that in the past. I want to start with a different one today and let you know what's going on at your local mall. And when we come back, we'll not only tell you that news, but we'll tell you why you might want to keep an eye on it, why you'll be interested in it. And it's just one of many things we're going to cover today, and we'll end up maybe with a little good biblical money philosophy, kind of have a catch-all episode here on The Bottom Line. So get ready, and when we come back from this short commercial break, we'll dive right into the news of the day. That's next.
Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
Hello, welcome back. We're talking about news of the day, and we're starting with some interesting things from the world of commercial real estate. Big headline in the Wall Street Journal: shopping malls face default, fire sales as valuations plunge. And it begins with a description of a particular shopping mall in Connecticut. The town is Waterford, and it talks about the fact that in the old days, there were always such huge crowds there that parents, rather than trying to find a parking space in this overcrowded mall parking lot, would line up to just sort of drop their kids off for the afternoon at the mall's main entrance and arrange to come back with them later. There was no place to park in that mall. And today, what mostly is in that mall parking lot are weeds. The stores are gone, the mall is closed, and it describes it in pretty graphic terms in the sense that as recently as 2012, this particular mall in Connecticut was appraised at $153 million, which is, maybe typical of the era. $153 million in 2012, recently sold in a foreclosure auction for $9 million. The developer, operator of that mall, Simon Properties, essentially just stopped making their mortgage payments because the mall was producing no revenue for them. They let the bank take it. It was sold in foreclosure for $9 million. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Now, the odds are, wherever you are, you live near or know of a shopping mall that has fallen on hard times. I'm old enough to remember when malls were kind of a new thing, and I remember where I lived as a child, typical small town area. Every town had its little downtown with a furniture store and a shoe store and a couple of banks and a 5 and 10 and so on and so forth. And then the mall went in, and because it was the only one pretty much in the county at the time, that's all anyone called it, was the mall. But this particular mall had 101 stores, and nobody had ever seen any such a thing. And it killed the downtowns in these little towns that surrounded it, because why would you drive from town to town and walk from store to store when you can drive to one mall, park in one parking lot, and have 101 stores to choose from, plus restaurants and all these things? So the malls were new, and they were killing the downtowns, and they were taking over everything, and they skyrocketed. Well, malls actually hit their highest valuations about the year 2016, and they've been declining ever since. And I don't mean in small terms. I don't mean 2, 3, 4, 5%. The typical mall, especially if it's kind of downscale, a bread and butter mall as opposed to a really high-end one, but a typical downscale mall is today worth 50 to 70% less than it was worth in 2016. And that's an enormous fall. And when these things die, and many people do believe that the mall in general is in its death spiral as a business concept, as a retail concept, when these things die, they have some collateral damage. A lot of people lose their jobs when the restaurants close and the surrounding businesses close. When the mall I told you about from my childhood started to die, the neighboring theater complex also died, because it depended on traffic from mall shoppers for the most part. And so it created a spiral of economic downforce. And it even impacts, I believe, the residential real estate market, because, of course, if you live in an area that's right next to a gigantic dead mall, it doesn't do much for your property value. So we have been seeing that there are a number of forces in the commercial real estate world that had the potential to negatively impact the residential real estate world. We've talked about the decline of Airbnb rentals in many places. We've talked about the office space emergency, in the sense that after the pandemic, many people didn't go back to work. Downtown office spaces are vacant and not producing revenue. And when their mortgages come up for renewal at today's much higher rates, there may be a lot of office foreclosures. That's on top of the mall foreclosures that we are reading about and talking about today. So all of these forces happening at once can't happen in a vacuum. And they will exert some downward pressure on the residential real estate side. Now, how much is anyone's guess, and everyone's got predictions as to what's going to happen in the world of residential real estate. There are YouTubers, and quite a few of them, who are telling you that we're looking at Armageddon in the residential real estate world, that what's coming will be worse than it was in 2008. Some people are invoking the Great Depression of 1929, 1930, and saying it's going to be like that. And other people are saying, nah, it's not going to be so bad. In fact, the worst is already over. Confidence among builders is returning. We've gotten past the slump. Here's the thing. Prices of anything are always an issue of balancing supply and demand. The Fed has been raising interest rates in part to attempt to decrease demand for residential real estate. They want to slow the rate at which it's been increasing. And in some places, that is in fact happening. Some of the cities that were hottest in terms of real estate, places in Arizona, Nevada, Idaho, Florida, have slowed down greatly, and you're seeing price reductions of 10, 15, in some cases more %. Other parts of the country are not particularly affected. So far, there's been no notable declines in the New England states or most of the mid-Atlantic states, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. You're not seeing declines there. And you're seeing significant increases in some places like the Midwest. Midwest was always sort of the poor stepbrother to the coasts, but prices are starting to appreciate very strongly as people who realize they can work remotely are relocating to the Midwest because prices are much lower there, but they're accelerating quickly. So what's going to happen to residential real estate? The truth is, we don't know. There are things that put downward pressure on prices, and that's some of these woes in the commercial markets, as well as what the Fed is doing. And the general rule is you can't fight the Fed. As rates rise, the demand for buyers slows. But on the flip side of that, the available inventory has also been steadily decreasing, which puts pressure on prices in the other direction. Less supply tends to raise prices. Well, why is there less supply? Because if a person is looking to move, let's say you're an empty nester, kids are grown out of the house, you got 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, and it's just 2 spouses living there. They don't really need all of that room. They want to lower their annual real estate tax bill. They're thinking of moving. The problem is they got a mortgage that they got years ago at 2.2%, and the typical mortgage rate now is very close to 7%. They're not going to replace their 2% mortgage with a 7% mortgage. It doesn't really make financial sense for them. So they stay put. They hold on to the house, and they wait for rates to come down before they go finance somewhere else. And that phenomenon is keeping the supply down, and the low supply is keeping the prices up. Now, one of these things will break, but we don't know which will break first. Will the supply, will there be a foreclosure crisis if we have a recession that increases the supply? Back in 2008, there were tons and tons of foreclosures. The year 2010 saw 2 million of them. 2 million foreclosures in 2010. The estimate this year, 2023, is that we'll have something under 200,000 of them. That's 1/10. So there won't be a huge wave of foreclosures dumping inventory onto the market. And as long as the inventory stays lower than demand, then prices won't fall. Regionally, there'll be huge variations. As we have said, you'll see places like Boise, Idaho, or Phoenix, they've already come down a good bit. If you're in Boston waiting for prices to fall, that hasn't happened yet and may not. So these things affect you, these commercial real estate things affect you in that they do put pressure one way or the other on real estate prices, but where it will all shake out, nobody knows. So what's the bottom line? If you're house hunting, when you find a house that fits the bill and fits your budget, if you want a house, buy it. But don't rush out and buy a house because, oh no, it's going to be more unaffordable next year. These rates will eventually come down again. Rates are cyclical like everything else, including house prices. And when they do, the house that you can't afford today might be affordable next year. So don't let fear of missing out make you rush out and do something you'll be unhappy about doing or something you can't afford doing. We'll talk a little bit more on the other side, but first we're going to have a word to help us pay some station bills here at NECTN, and when we come back, we'll keep going. Stay tuned.
Do you want to make a bold statement? Do you want to stand out in the room? Check in with us before you step out. On-demand designs and timeless statement pieces are here to channel your impeccable style from this season to the next. You can have it all, so go get it and be confident when you do. Jewels on Demand, inspiring elegance and confidence.
Looking at all these predictions we've been talking about for the real estate market, this happens in all markets. The stock market, on a daily basis, you're hearing someone's predictions about where the market will be tomorrow, next week, next month, next quarter. Everybody's got predictions. And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of driving autocross. If you're familiar with it, autocross is a sport. It takes place in parking lots. Like I participated in one at the parking lot of Gillette Stadium. And they set up a bunch of orange cones to create a really twisty road course. And your goal is to drive the little labyrinthine path, the serpentine path, between the orange cones in as fast of a time as possible without murdering any of the orange cones. You get time added to your results if you hit a cone. So you're trying to weave your way through and drive the course as fast as you humanly can without actually sliding off the course and hitting a cone or driving too soon. And the instructors who help you get better at doing this tell every driver the same thing. Your biggest problem is that you're not looking far enough down the road. Your eyes are too low. You're so busy looking at that cone 30 feet in front of you that you don't want to hit, that you're not planning for your longer course maneuvers, and you end up hitting something 35 feet in front of you because your eyes were too far down. They spend the whole time saying, raise your eyes, raise your eyes. I've actually been on courses where they'll intersperse green cones every so often within the orange cones. And they'll tell you, when you come around that hairpin turn, look for the next green cone. It's going to be way down the road, but that's where your eyes should be, not right in front of you. If you're driving around town, never mind an autocross, a lot of drivers almost have accidents because they're looking right in front of them and they don't see what's farther down the road. You need to lift your eyes and look farther ahead. The same is true when we get to economic predictions and financial predictions. It is so easy to get caught up in what's going to happen next. Will residential real estate prices fall? And if so, how much? Will the stock market correct? And if so, how much and when? And how bad will it be? Will this happen? Will we get a recession, or will we get a soft landing? A recent headline said that the markets are now confident that the Fed has engineered a soft landing. If they have, it's a rare achievement for which they need to be congratulated. The last 13 times the Fed went on interest rate rising streaks. We've had recessions after 10 of them. Only 3 of them did not result in recession. So if this is going to be a fourth, that's great. But the truth is, we don't know whether we'll get a recession or a soft landing. We don't know whether real estate prices will correct significantly now or not. We don't know when interest rates will move the other way and how fast they'll start to go down. We don't know where the stock market will be 3 months from now. We're getting into earnings season again, and while the market has done great so far this year, higher rates put pressure on corporate earnings. That may push things down in the second half of the year. The truth is, we don't know. And it's easy to get so caught up in the predictions that you're focused on, well, what do I do right now? What should I do next? What's going to happen and how should I respond to that? And the truth of the matter is, the best way to win long term is to do the same things day in and day out, because you're looking farther down the road, not at what's happening next. Down the road, your eligibility for a full Social Security benefit is coming on a fixed date. When you turn 67, you'll be eligible for your full-sized benefit. When you turn 62, you'll be eligible for a benefit. But those dates, the date you turn 62, the date you turn 67, these dates are fixed. They're not going to change whatever happens next. You're going to need a budget of a certain size in your retirement in order to pay your housing costs and food and medicine and medical care and entertainment and all the things. These things are going to have a fairly set costs that we can predict based on, whatever we think inflation might do long term, and we do have long term stats. Those things won't change regardless of what the market does next week, regardless of whether we have a recession in 2023 or 2024 or avoid one at all. These things don't change. So the people who tend to win are the people who focus on the long-term realities and not get caught jumping in and out of markets, not get caught making decisions based on a hunch about what's going to happen next. It's the difference between the tortoise and the hare. You've all heard that old nursery rhyme because they tell it to every kid when he's about 4 years old. And it's that the rabbit and the turtle are having a race. And of course, rabbits are much faster than turtles. And so the gun sounds and the rabbit takes off and the turtle is plodding along. And the rabbit's so far ahead, he decides to stop and have lunch. And he takes a nap under a tree, and at some point he looks up and realizes the turtle has caught up. So he takes off again, he gets way ahead, and allows himself to get distracted by many things over and over again. He wanders off the path, he comes back. Last minute, the finish line is approaching, the rabbit realizes he's behind, he runs, but he comes in just after the tortoise, who gives us the moral of the story that slow and steady wins the day. Or to use biblical terminology, the race is not always unto the swift. And so this is very much true when it comes to finance and investing. The excitement is in the rapid fire delivery of daily numbers, and ticker tape is what they used to call it when there was literally a physical tape. Now you just get that crawler on the bottom of your screen if you're watching a financial news channel. But that's where the excitement is, and that's where the urgency is. And oh no, this leading economic indicator just was released and it suggests that this is going to happen next. And you get to thinking that if you can just manage all of that well enough and fast enough, you can get in on the days when the markets will go up, and you can get out on the days the markets will go down, and you jump in and out, and you'll do so much better than those poor tortoises who are just plodding along dollar cost averaging every day. But just like the nursery rhyme, nobody can predict the future accurately, consistently. Sure, somebody will be right once or twice about something. I remember there was a famous analyst and I believe mutual fund manager back in 1987 who called the 87 crash and was briefly famous for having done that with the stock market and was able to play that. This is so-and-so, the one who correctly called for such and such. And that works for 2, 3, maybe 4 years. And then people start noticing that you've been wrong about everything since that. And so the bloom was off the rose, so to speak. And you see that a lot. People will get a thing right and then try to ride that to the conclusion that they'll get other things right and that you should follow them and you should take their advice because they got that one thing right in terms of predictions. Nobody has proven themselves able to predict with consistency what's going to happen and when. And those are the two things. If you're going to predict a market crash, you not only have to know that it's a market crash, you have to know when it starts, you have to know when it ends, or you cost people money on one end or the other. And most people can't do that. I've never come across anyone who can demonstrate a track record of getting that kind of thing right day in and day out. So my advice to all investors: read the news of the day, know what's going on, but don't get so caught up in the excitement of it and the urgency of it and trying to make predictions based on it that your eyes are too low, that you're like that autocross driver looking at the pavement 35 feet in front of the car as opposed to looking down the road and making adjustments accordingly. Look farther down the road. Look to your children's college years. Look toward your parents' old age. Look toward your retirement and the 15, 20, 25, maybe 30 years that you will live after that. Plan your finances accordingly, conduct your finances accordingly, and don't get too caught up in the day-to-day gyrations. Be the tortoise, not the hare. And if you do that, history shows you beat the hare. You maybe have a little less excitement, but most days that's a good thing. And that's just some food for thought, because it's a short and fine line between, hey, look what's happening, to, hey, maybe I should adjust what I'm doing, and now you're jumping in and out of markets and ruining your own financial future. So don't make that mistake, and you'll be doing yourself well. Hey, one other thing I want to touch on, completely different topic. While we're talking about getting ahead financially, and that's the point of the bottom line, is to help you achieve your financial goals. Life is more pleasant when you're not under financial stress. But there's another fine line we have to avoid crossing, and that is to get so focused on our financial results that we start casting aspersions on people who don't measure up to us financially. We don't want to be guilty of despising the poor or thinking that somehow they must be less spiritual than I am because they have less money than I do, or God must not be blessing them for some reason, like He's blessing me because look how much money I've got compared to them, or what assets I own compared to them. We don't want to make our money the source of spiritual complacency or spiritual self-satisfaction because we're doing well financially. There's something you don't hear a lot in church in Hebrews 11 that I want to point out to you just in our last minute here. Hebrews 11 is what we call the roll call of the heroes of faith. And there's all these people that we admire for what they did. And we tend to start with the beginning of the chapter and focus on all those people who overcame and who subdued and who conquered and all these things. But toward the end of the chapter, verse 36 says, others had trial of cruel mockings and scourgings, of bonds and imprisonment, were stoned, sawn asunder, tempted, slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented. And then it says the most surprising thing, of whom the world was not worthy. Yes, it said of whom the world was not worthy, of people that it had just described as destitute. So money is a measure of potential comfort. It is a measure of potential security. It's not a measure of worth. You can be well off and not worth much spiritually, and you can be dirt broke and be one of these people who was destitute, but the world was not worthy of them. So we're just trying to keep it all in perspective. It's a show about accumulating money, but it's keeping it real in terms of what that means to you. And we're out of time for this episode, but when we come back after this quick break, we'll wrap it all up and tell you where to go from here. Stay tuned.
The Well Jamaican Restaurant, located at 55 Mazio Drive in Randolph, Mass., where good food and fellowship meet daily. Check out our variety of fresh and tasty entrees and sides from our menu or the website, thewellja.com, like our jerk chicken, oxtails and rice, seafood, desserts, and more, with our drinks and juices made fresh daily. You have the option to dine in or take out. We can also cater your special event, or you can book our private dining room and let us host your special event. At the Well Jamaican Restaurant, we pride ourselves on providing superior quality food and beverages, and of course, great customer service. Next time you're in the mood for Jamaican cuisine, meet us at the Well Jamaican Restaurant. Become part of the family. Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. The Well, where good food and fellowship meet daily.
Welcome back. We covered a lot today. We rambled around from here to there. We started with current events, and the takeaway, after we talked about what's going on in the world of shopping malls, the takeaway was keep up with current events. Just don't let them make your focus so short-term that you forget to look far down the road and guide your actions by your long-term plans and goals. Keeping up with current events, by the way, one of the best places to do that, subscribe to this newspaper, the Wall Street Journal. Really good roundup of everything that's happening in the world of money and finance. Pretty reliable reporting, and will get you conversant with the the language of finance and the issues from the political side to the banking industry to what's happening with investments. It's all here, something that I highly recommend everybody read. The other thing we said was that as we progress toward making our way toward financial goals, let's keep it all in check. The more money you have, the harder you have to work to make sure that money doesn't occupy an inappropriate place in your heart. You want to talk about any of this? Give us a call, 978-775-5435. You can reach me at my office or email john.harrison@aspirefa.com. Whether you want to talk about the latest mutual funds or the spiritual truths behind all of this, I'm always happy to chat with you. That wraps up another episode, and I close as I always do. Remember, wherever you are, you can get where you're going. You just need a little direction for the journey. And that's the bottom line.